Carter Observatory Act Repeal Bill, second reading.
Speaker.
I call the Honourable Wayne Mapp.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Carter Observatory Act Repeal Bill be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this bill was referred to the Education Science Select Committee for consideration on 22nd October and has reported back quite early. Of course, one of the reasons they were able to report back quite early is indicated in their own report, which notes that they actually had to go out and seek submissions, and indeed they noted that we support the provisions in this bill and do not recommend any amendments to the House. The reason I mention those specific issues, which I know members on the committee itself will cover briefly, is because this bill, of course, was voted in without dissent on the first reading, and I'm looking forward to that same practice for this second reading and also the committee stages and the third reading. And indeed, I would be hopeful, perhaps when we get to the committee stages, we would be able to move immediately to the third reading on that day as well, by agreement of the House, of course, as you would appreciate, Mr. Speaker. I don't intend to spend a great deal of time on this debate because I know the aspiration of the Wellington City Council is to take full legal ownership of the observatory as soon as possible. And I had the great pleasure, in fact, of attending, as I know some other members in the House did here as well, at the observatory for effectively the, I suppose in legal terms it was the informal transfer, but the practical transfer of the observatory to Wellington City Council. They have done a fantastic job in refurbishing the facility. It is a great community asset, an educational asset and tourist asset. They've restored it from an historical perspective. The key instruments date back to more than last century, to the 19th century, but are in fact in use today for tour groups and so forth, and indeed some useful scientific work is actually undertaken at the observatory. But it has moved fundamentally from a scientific facility as such to more of an educational facility and one that boosts the overall profile in Wellington. Can I actually say this in conclusion? One of the interesting things I find as a non-resident of Wellington, someone who visits here admittedly on a weekly basis, but nevertheless it's not actually my home, I'd have to say that of cities of 400,000 people or so, Wellington must be one of the finest cities in the world. It has an extraordinary range of cultural and artistic facilities. It's got an amazing physical location, and the observatory complements the cultural aspects of Wellington and is a further reason why Wellington can project itself in a positive kind of way, as they do, as a place of real intellectual ferment. And I think it's been a great move by successive previous government initiated this process, of course, but it's been, I think, a very good move to shift the observatory from essentially government ownership through to Wellington City Corporation ownership, which is far more appropriate in the circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I think I should allow other members of the House to also acknowledge the role of the observatory in the cultural and intellectual life of Wellington. And Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to be able to move this bill through its progressive stages so that we can create in legal form what has happened already as a practical reality. Thank you.
Members, the question is that the motion be agreed to. I call David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to absolutely and positively endorse the Minister's comments about the observatory and Wellington in general.